The amount of action that's been happening in the Western Conference this offseason has been absolutely ridiculous. Starting with the Dallas Mavericks had an active offseason, strategically re-signing Kyrie Irving to a 3-year deal, also making some notable acquisitions. They secured Seth Curry on a favorable contract, capitalizing on his shooting prowess despite defensive concerns. The team engaged in a sign and trade, acquiring versatile forward Grant Williams from Boston, a move with potential defensive upside. They also signed guard Dante Exum, a former high draft pick with an impressive three-point shot. Though the decision was questioned due to available alternatives, the Mavs added depth by re-signing Dwight Powell, reliable presence alongside Luka Doncic. The overall strategy seemed focused on complementing Doncic and Irving with role players, prioritizing defense and three-point shooting, despite some critiques regarding defensive weaknesses and potentially overlooking wing options. Kyrie Irving's signing, while beneficial in isolation, raised concern about potential drama. The Mavs' offseason moves aim to enhance their roster around the star duo, with a combination of experienced shooters and defensive contributors like Derek Lively and Olivier Max Prosper, who were both gained from the draft this year and can make immediate impacts for the team, which will altogether contribute to an overall solid offseason performance, giving the Mavericks a B+. The Nuggets lost one of their biggest championship pieces in Bruce Brown due to salary constraints, and lost him to the Indiana Pacers. Their notable signings include 2-year, $10 million for Reggie Jackson, which raised eyebrows considering his limited playoff usage, and the addition of veteran Justin Holiday. Although the Nuggets aimed to attract ring chasers, their efforts seem to have fallen short. The loss of Brown's competitiveness and defense in the playoffs was acknowledged, but Nikola Jokic's presence was seen as potentially compensating for it. They utilized the taxpayer mid-level exception to re-sign Jackson, hoping for improved performance after an offseason in the Nuggets system. Denver's offseason moves were relatively limited, with their main additions being rookies Julian Strawther and Hunter Tyson, who showed promise in Summer League. Despite these developments, the Nuggets' status as championship favorites, anchored by Nikola Jokic, remains. Although the quest for a repeat championship was made more challenging, this gives the Nuggets a C. The Golden State Warriors made some big-time moves this summer, starting with retaining Draymond Green while navigating salary concerns. Trading Jordan Poole resulted in acquiring Chris Paul, a seasoned point guard who, despite his age, could contribute to the team's second unit. Re-signing Green proved successful, albeit with a 4th year added to his contract. The departure of Bob Myers as general manager was a notable loss, and the Warriors' commitment to their core players, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins, was a defining theme. The team aimed to strike a clear direction, opting for experienced players and solidifying their identity. Notable additions also included Corey Joseph, Brennan Pajemski, and Trace Jackson Davis through the draft. The decision to prioritize present success over future potential was evident, with an emphasis on Curry's top-tier performance and a willingness to experiment with Paul and Curry sharing the backcourt. Despite their contrasting styles, the departure of Dante DiVincenzo was offset by the hope that emerging talents like Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody would step into their 3rd season, aligning with the Warriors' title aspiration, while Curry remains to be a pivotal force. So overall, the Warriors get a B-. The Houston Rockets underwent a series of strategic maneuvers to reshape their roster and enhance their competitive standing. One of the most noteworthy additions was Fred VanVleet, an experienced point guard, celebrated for his organizational skills and ability in setting up plays. Accompanying VanVleet was Dillon Brooks, a defensive stalwart whose prowess on that end of the court was undeniable, although his offensive capabilities and shooting efficiency raised concerns. Jock Landale's signing as a backup center added depth to the team's front court, while the contract structures demonstrated the Rockets' commitment to future financial flexibility, with Landale and VanVleet's deals incorporating team options in subsequent years. Despite these constructive steps, the decision to allocate a substantial 4-year, $80 million contract to Dillon Brooks garnered skepticism, with the need for offensive consistency and shooting improvement highlighted. Alongside these signings, the Rockets seized the opportunity to infuse young talent by selecting Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore in the draft, thereby complementing their emerging young group in Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and other young prospects. These collective moves underline Houston's concentrated effort to expedite their rebuilding process and elevate their position in the NBA hierarchy, while simultaneously underscoring the significance of maintaining a balanced focus on long-term player development and strategic vision for sustained success. So with the Rockets' overwhelming offseason performance, they get an A-. The Los Angeles Clippers offseason has been marked by uncertainty, largely centered around the potential acquisition of James Harden through a trade. While they secured the re-signing of Russell Westbrook and the drafting of Kobe Brown, it's the looming Harden trade that casts a shadow over their moves. The Clippers' consistent strategy revolves around keeping Paul George and Kawhi Leonard as their key assets, emphasizing continuity. The departure of Eric Gordon due to financial considerations is a setback, but the addition of KJ Martin brings an infusion of athleticism, contingent on his ability to improve his shooting. With Kobe Brown showcasing promise in the Summer League, the team might rely on his contributions off the bench during his rookie season. As the Clippers wait for the Harden situation to unfold, their aspirations to reach higher goals remain in flux. Interestingly, the Philadelphia 76ers, who were initially in the Harden trade talks, have now halted negotiations and intend to have him join their training camp, leaving the outcome of his potential move is still uncertain, and with time running out for a move to be made before the season, it's looking quiet for the Clippers, which result in them getting a D+ this offseason. Right next door, the Lakers embarked on a strategic approach to solidify the roster while targeting incremental improvements. A key highlight was their successful efforts in re-signing crucial in-house talents, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui Hachimura. With Reeves particularly standing out due to the team-friendly nature of his deal, outmaneuvering potential competitors, the Lakers displayed a nuanced understanding of team dynamics by making calculated signings that balance risk and potential reward. Notable acquisitions include Gabe Vincent, whose 3-and-D skill set showcased potential benefits, and additional gains like Taurean Prince, Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes, collectively contributing to a deeper talent pool. The Lakers drafted 2 rookies in Jalen Hood-Schifino and Maxwell Lewis, who likely will be seeing the majority of their minutes in the G League this year, but could sniff some time in the NBA, giving the Lakers a promising future. As the Lakers continue to fine-tune their roster around the dynamic duo of LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they position themselves to contend once again in a fiercely competitive Western Conference landscape, giving the Lakers an A-. During the Memphis Grizzlies offseason, they strategically maneuvered to fortify their roster for the upcoming season. The team's initial move involved a 3-team trade that brought Marcus Smart on board, addressing the need for a seasoned player who offers defensive prowess and playmaking. This acquisition proved to be even more crucial due to Ja Morant's impending 25-game suspension, emphasizing Smart's role in steadying the team. In a bid to enhance their overall depth, the Grizzlies also secured Josh Christopher from the Houston Rockets and added Derrick Rose to their ranks, bolstering their options in the point guard position. However, the departure of Dillon Brooks raised concerns about wing depth, possibly requiring younger talents like Zaire Williams and David Roddy to step up. Furthermore, a noteworthy contract extension was granted to Desmond Bane, recognizing his significant contributions as a shooting guard. Despite the steep cost of 2 first-round picks and Tyus Jones, the acquisition of Smart's leadership, defensive acumen, and offensive versatility is anticipated to significantly support the Grizzlies' ambitions for a deep playoff run alongside Morant. The team's strategic approach in the offseason signifies their commitment to building a well-rounded roster as they seek to make their mark this upcoming season. With the addition of Marcus Smart and some young talent, the Grizzlies get a B+. The Minnesota Timberwolves had a relatively constrained offseason due to their financial commitments, which included acquiring Rudy Gobert earlier. They waived Taurean Prince to avoid luxury tax, despite the Lakers benefiting from his acquisition. Their minimal activity focused on re-signing key players and adding some depth. They secured Anthony Edwards with a max extension, cementing his role as the franchise face. The team aimed to bolster their point guard options by signing Shake Milton and took a chance on prospect Leonard Miller, showing potential in the NBA Summer League. Adding a pre-prime rotation players like Shake Milton and Troy Brown Jr. seemed like a solid move, although they already had similar talents in Jordan McLaughlin and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Despite these efforts, the Wolves' overall improvement remains uncertain, relying on health, internal growth, and synergy of Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards. The coaching staff saw changes, with Ernest Scott becoming head coach, and there were other minor signings and extensions throughout the offseason. As they head into the upcoming season, the Timberwolves' success will likely hinge on their ability to mesh with their core players' talents effectively and extract better results than the previous season's underwhelming performance. With the lack of moves this summer coming off a disappointing season, Timberwolves get a D-. The New Orleans Pelicans had a relatively quiet offseason, strategically managing the Herb Jones situation by declining his team option and making him a restricted free agent and signing him to a 4-year $56 million deal, bolstering their defense. They also made an intriguing move in the NBA draft by selecting Jordan Hawkins, a potential high-end floor spacer who showcased impressive shooting skills during his college career. Alongside these moves, the Pelicans focused on retaining key players and acquiring Cody Zeller to provide backup support at the center position. Despite a season ruined by injuries, that hindered their progress, particularly impacting stars like Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. The Pelicans aim to maintain roster continuity and are banking on the health and performance of their core players. As they head into the upcoming season, there's a sense of optimism and hope that their deep roster, when healthy, can finally unleash its potential and reach the levels of success envisioned for this promising team. The decision not to trade Zion Williamson despite speculations and the addition of rookie Jordan Hawkins reflect the team's commitment to nurturing the young talent and building for the future, as they seek to harness the promising dynamics between Zion and the franchise while addressing the challenges of injuries that have historically plagued their progress. While managing to keep their roster intact and adding a nice young player like Jordan Hawkins, the Pelicans get a C+. The bulk of OKC's summer came in the form of the draft, which saw them select Cason Wallace, an emerging two-way guard, and shrewdly acquire Ty Washington and Usman Garuba, two promising prospects with potential upside, thereby further enhancing their young and versatile talent pool. Additionally, the Thunder displayed their commitment to both ends of the floor by securing extensions for defensive stalwart Lou Dort and versatile contributor Kenrich Williams, further expanding their roster depth and ensuring a well-rounded approach. OKC was one of the biggest winners of the NBA Summer League, as they saw their number 2 overall pick from last year, Chet Holmgren, make big-time contributions on both ends of the floor. The Thunder also added 2 seasoned veterans in Victor Oladipo and Davis Bertans, who could look to speed up the timeline of this young roster and help make a deep push in the playoffs this upcoming season. Drafting Cason Wallace also immediately boosts the Thunder's defense and gives them a guy who can both start and finish games for them. These deliberate moves underscore the Thunder's dedication in nurturing emerging talents while strategically positioning themselves for further growth and contention, giving the Thunder a B. The Phoenix Suns had a busy and bold offseason, starting by acquiring Bradley Beal in a trade with the Washington Wizards, solidifying their core alongside Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. They followed up with strategic moves, signing Eric Gordon to bolster up their shooting and ball handling, while also adding Yuta Watanabe, Keita Bates-Diop, and Jordan Goodwin to provide floor spacing, two-way potential, and defensive prowess. The Suns managed to fill out their roster with quality veterans on minimum contracts, such as Chemzy Medu, Drew Eubanks, Bol Bol, and Toumani Camara. Despite the constraints of Beal's salary, they assembled a competitive lineup with an eye on a championship, even as they faced the departure of Chris Paul and Landry Shamet. With an emphasis on maximizing their title window, the Suns orchestrated a dynamic offseason that has the potential to reshape the competitive landscape, and as they come into the season as loaded as any team in the Western Conference, the Suns get an A-. The Portland Trailblazers had a very busy offseason, marked by the saga of Damian Lillard's trade request. Despite the uncertainty, the team made significant moves. They strategically shopped Lillard around the league, instead of immediately agreeing to his Miami Heat preference, aiming to secure valuable assets. While the potential loss of Lillard loomed, the Blazers made impactful draft choices, acquiring Scoot Henderson and Chris Murray, bolstering their future prospects. However, a perplexing decision was re-signing Jeremy Grant to a hefty $160 million deal just before Lillard's trade request. This move raised questions, as it might become an expensive commitment down the line. Portland's focus on the draft brought in promising talents like Henderson to pair up with Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons, signaling a positive direction for the team. Additionally, the team's roster underwent some changes, with the inclusion of additional players like Rayon Rupert and the departure of Trenton Watford, Kevin Knox, Cam Reddish, Drew Eubanks, and Justice Winslow. The Blazers' ultimate grade for this offseason remains uncertain, hinged on the resolution of Lillard's situation and the potential return in a trade package. Despite the complexities, Portland secured young talents and positioned itself for the future, with the shadow of Lillard's trade request casting a significant impact on their overall offseason evaluation. So with the Lillard trade looming, so far, the Trailblazers get an A-. During the offseason, the Sacramento Kings strategically navigated the waters of change, aiming to capitalize on their promising momentum from the previous season. The team's decision to trade their first-round pick and move Richaun Holmes hinted at bold intentions, potentially targeting marquee names like Draymond Green or Kyle Kuzma. However, the Kings ultimately prioritized stability, opting to re-sign pivotal contributors such as Harrison Barnes and Trey Lyles, also securing the future by extending Domantas Sabonis' contract. This calculated approach showcased their commitment to building around their core of De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and emerging talent like Chris Duarte and Sasha Vezenkov, signifying a strategic path towards sustained growth. While the absence of a splashy addition may have disappointed some fans, the Kings' focus on incremental improvements and maintaining a cohesive roster structure suggests a long-term vision that goes beyond immediate offseason headlines. There were high hopes for the Kings to make a big-time signing or trade this summer, to really put them amongst the top-tier teams in the NBA, and considering they couldn't get anything done and they traded their first-round pick and a salary dump and really didn't get anything done this offseason, the Kings get a C-. San Antonio Spurs couldn't be more happy coming into the season than they are now. The Spurs embarked on a rather quiet free agency period, opting to re-sign Trey Jones. However, the spotlight of the offseason undoubtedly shone on the draft lottery, when they were granted the privilege of selecting Victor Wembanyama at the top overall pick. This pivotal move has ignited substantial anticipation and optimism for the franchise's trajectory. Alongside this game-changing selection, the Spurs secured the services of seasoned players like Cameron Payne and Reggie Bullock, likely aiming to infuse experience and performance into their roster. The strategic absorption of contracts led to the acquisition of rotation-worthy assets like Cedi Osman and Lamar Stevens, bolstering the team's depth. The Spurs' main focus revolves around nurturing Wembanyama's growth and potentially delaying the immediate competitiveness to cultivate sustainable long-term success. All in all, the Spurs offseason witnessed the transformational addition of Wembanyama and a series of calculated transactions aimed at fortifying their team. With the Spurs winning the Wembanyama sweepstakes and adding some nice seasoned players to their roster, the Spurs get an A-. The Utah Jazz experienced an amazing offseason as they exhibited a proactive approach to potential upgrades, successfully securing John Collins, a borderline all-star talent, through a trade where all they really gave up was Rudy Gay. While the team's enthusiasm for Collins is tempered by concerns about his fit and a noticeable decline in his three-point shooting due to injury, his acquisition represents a calculated gamble with a low risk but high reward. The Jazz further built on their roster by adding Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, and Bryce Sensabaugh through the draft, injecting fresh talent into their development pipeline. The Jazz had to be the biggest winner of the draft, considering they were able to get 3 projected lottery picks all in the first round, all seamlessly fitting into Utah's young core. While immediate contention might not be within reach, these offseason moves reflect the Jazz's commitment to fortifying their foundation for sustained growth and future success. And considering the Jazz lost nothing and brought 4 great players to their team, the Jazz get an A.